Baby in here, an ESPN reporter who covers the Bengals. But guys, if you need the toughest gutter guards out there, then the only gutter guard for Cleveland Browns fans is Leaf Filter. Leaf Filter has been protecting gutters in Northeast Ohio for 20 years. An investment in Leaf Filter is an investment engineered to protect your entire home. Clogged gutters aren't just a nuisance. They can cause extensive water damage. Protect your home from flooding, roof damage, rotting siding, foundation issues, and more. Do-it-yourself and store-bought solutions may be cheaper up front, but they end up costing you more in the long run. Schedule your free inspection now, and for a limited time, get up to 32% off your entire qualified purchase and 2 free Browns jerseys at leaffilter.com/UCSS. That's a free inspection up to 32% off and 2 free Browns jerseys with a qualified purchase at leaffilter.com/UCSS. Offer valid on a first-come, first-served basis while supplies last. Full terms and conditions can be found at leaffilter.com/UCSS. See representatives for warranty details. And with that, let's welcome Ben Baby in.
Ben, let me ask you this. If Zach Taylor, if the Bengals had a legitimate owner, like not this clown who thinks he's managing the grocery store in 1986, if they had a legitimate owner, Zach Taylor would be fired by now, wouldn't he?
I mean, you're talking about a guy who took them to the Super Bowl a few years ago. And the offense, it's interesting, looking at how people evaluate Zach. I think a lot of it has the offense been good enough to live up to the resources he has, namely Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins? Has he squandered them? And this year, you look at it, the offense is playing better than it has. They finally revamped the run game. So they've done well. I don't know how much of this is on Zach. I think when you look at it, the bigger question goes to maybe Duke Tobin and if he's done a good enough job building that roster, especially on that defensive side of the ball. When I sat down with Joe Burrow in the offseason, he was here for a marketing event with Guinness, and we had an extended conversation. And he said even if he had been healthy, he did not feel like last year's team was really good enough to go where they wanted to go. And this year, that defense has been a big question mark. And that's really been the surprising thing, is the defense hasn't played as well as they would have hoped. And I think that goes to the roster construction.
A lot of that stuff is fair, but I would say personally, I feel like they got to the Super Bowl in spite of Zach Taylor, in my opinion. He is when you have the talent, and the Bengals, if you look at just quarterback and skill positions, the Bengals are as talented, if not more, probably the most talented team in the league. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I don't know who could be better. Like, obviously, the only quarterback that's definitely better is Mahomes, and he doesn't have the skill position talent that Burrow has. You want to say Josh Allen, he clearly doesn't. Lamar Jackson has the running back, but the tight ends, but he don't have the wide receivers that Joe Burrow does. So it's the best collection of quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Defense is another story. And yet, in big spots, he consistently plays conservative football. It drives me nuts. You go to the Ravens game. I mean, what are you doing? I know McPherson's a good kicker, and it was a bad snap, whatever, but I got Joe Burrow. He's thrown for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. I can't play conservatively. Let's go for the kill, and he just doesn't do that. That drives me crazy.
Yeah, I think that your frustration is shared amongst a lot of folks, and even the players after the game, after that Baltimore game. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase both said they wish they would have thrown it a little bit more. Zach doubled down on that, and I think where you can't criticize Zach a good amount this year is that the fact that in these one-score games they just haven't played as well as they should, and quite frankly, this team should be better than its record indicates.
No doubt.
And it reminds me a lot of 2019, where that team went 2-14, but on paper that was not a team that should have been that bad. And so I think that's going to be the thing to watch as we continue the season. If they don't finish or don't have the record that they should, and they lose some of these one-score games, then you're going to be asking a lot of questions about Zach, who's going to be under contract, I believe, for at least another 2 years. And you look at it, and they shouldn't have lost to New England. They shouldn't have lost to Baltimore, shouldn't have lost to Kansas City.
That's right.
And at the end of the year, if they don't make the playoffs, there's no excuse for not winning those games when you were in the positions that you were in.
That's right.
And that goes back to, in-game decisions and kind of how those things played out.
Yep.
Ben, let me ask you about the defense for Cincinnati. Obviously, things looked a lot better last week. Obviously, they got the dub against the Giants. Do you think that they figured things out defensively, or do you think the Giants just not that good of a team?
I like Daniel Jones a little bit more than most. I think when you take Malik Neighbors out of that mix, obviously a much different offense. And don't sleep on the fact they didn't have Devin Singletary either. So I think Daniel Jones probably wasn't his best performance. But in the building in Cincinnati going into that game, they felt a lot of confidence. And a lot of guys told me, with our defensive line as banged up as it is, it's just really hard to get anything done. Now you're getting, you got Sheldon Rankins back last week, B.J. Hill getting healthier, Sam Hubbard getting healthier, and then Trey Hendrickson can be a wrecking ball on the edge. And I think that, he deserves to be in the same conversation as Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. I think that Myles head and shoulders above everybody in the league, a first ballot Hall of Famer, all decade guy. Whatever accolade you want to give Myles, I think Myles might be the greatest athlete in the world, quite frankly. Like the stuff that he does at his size is just ridiculous. But Trey's a really good edge rusher, and I think that because he doesn't do a ton of media, maybe doesn't get talked about as much. But I think that defensive line, if they can play a little bit better, that will help the whole unit. Cam Taylor-Britt needs to be better. He just hasn't played up to what we thought he could, and I think that goes all into the defensive conversation. And for me this week, the matchup to watch is, can they stop Nick Chubb? We'll see what kind of usage he gets. I know that our guy Daniel Olafusi said that Ken Dorsey's still looking at his management, what that will look like in his first game back from the ACL. Will he have a full workload? I think that the run defense has been the most suspect part of this defense, and they've got to be able to stop the run and keep that bottled up. Otherwise, you're going to open up a scenario for this awful, awful Browns offense to potentially score enough to win.
See, and by the way, Tyvus, your boy Sam Hubbard, he can't play a lick.
Hey.
He stinks.
What's wrong with you?
He was just good last year. What happened?
What is wrong
Stinks,
with
Sam
you?
Hubbard. Am I being unfair, Ben?
Yes.
So Sam has not played great. I do know that he suffered a hamstring injury that was more severe than we thought. I don't know how he's playing on that, quite frankly. It's very difficult. It was a grade 3 hamstring injury, so it was a tear there. Just did not require surgery at the time, and he's just going to have to play through it. And especially at his age, you look at his contract situation, I imagine he wants to be out there for as much as possible. I think he has played better in recent weeks. You're seeing him get more strength back and try to manage that hamstring that he suffered in training camp. But I think that it's funny, early in the year, he goes, he told me, he's like, I don't even want to know what my win rate is because it's got to be near the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
I think it was.
You owe him an apology.
All right, he's hurt. Whatever.
I mean, look, man, I just joked with Bull. I said, man, if y'all lose to this Browns team, he's going to have to be some changes somewhere, Bull, because
they struggle in Cleveland.
I'm trying to look for an angle.
They struggle in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's it.
Ironically, we've had to turn our headlines in. I'm actually picking the Browns to win this game. And I don't know how I'm gonna find the data to back it up, but other than like, Nick Chubb come out, they ball out, and because the Bengals inexplicably just played garbage against the Browns. It's just I don't know what happens.
So weird.
It's just
How do you explain it, Ben?
Well, I can give you a path if you want to justify a Browns victory here. You got Nick Chubb getting some carries early. They get a nice touchdown offensively somehow. Maybe get a DPI down the field. You have Chubb run it in. You get some 7 points. We get a Denzel Ward pick 6 that maybe gives you 14 points. You go down the field, scratch a couple field goals out, 20 points you got there. And then Myles Garrett does what Myles Garrett does, a guy who has had the best numbers against Joe Burrow by far. You look at it, nobody does what they do against the Bengals like Myles Garrett does. You talk about 8 sacks in 6 games, 16 quarterback hits, according to ESPN research. That's double what anybody else has on Joe Burrow. And then when Myles Garrett gets the first pressure, Joe Burrow's QBR is 0.3 on a scale of 1 to 100, and his completion percentage is under 30%. So it's not insane to think that the Browns could come away with this, but I agree with you. There's really no excuse to lose to this Browns team. I mean, this offense is terrible. I feel bad for some of the guys over there because it's a talented group. I like those receivers still. I think that Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, there's still some meat on the bone there. That defense is really good. I mean, they know that this is one of the best defenses, I still think, in the league. When you talk about Myles Garrett, JOK got a lot of praise from Bengals offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher. That secondary is good. I've always been we've seen what Denzel Ward can do. I've been high on Grant Delpit for a long time. And I think that there are the pieces in place. And if the game falls the way it does, for the Browns to potentially give the Bengals some fits when they really have no business to do so.
Now, Ben, before I toss it to Bull here, I gotta get you. You cannot say that you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but you like our receiving room. Back to you, Bull. Out of no way, shape, or form that can be possible.
And Ben, I know he's coming up for a contract, so maybe that's probably a factor. But I think since T. Higgins has come back, he's playing the best football I've ever seen him play. Last year, he was dropping balls left and right. He don't drop anything now, it seems like.
Trying to get paid.
You agree with that or no?
No, I couldn't agree more. I thought last week, I like Deonte Banks. I think he's a good corner, a first-round pick last year. T. Higgins really did a good job. And you look at what the offense has done since he's come back. Nobody's been happier but Jamar Chase and T. Higgins or Joe Burrow to have T out there. He just opens up the offense a lot more. And listen, two things can be true. The Bengals can have a really good 1-2 combination, and the Browns can also have some receivers who maybe are not playing up to their potential. It would help if they had a good quarterback. That would be one thing. It's just really hard to evaluate. But T, I think when you look at what he's done, the ability to be tough at the catch point, he's always been a good route runner. Joe Burrow poked fun at the fact that his pop-up game, getting up after getting hit, has gotten a lot better since his rookie year. And T, when he got to training camp, we asked him, why did you sign the tag when you did? You could have let it drag out a little bit more. And he goes, listen, I knew a deal wasn't getting done, so let me just lock in, stay out of the headlines, put my head down, go to work, and show why I'm one of the best receivers in the league. And, Jamar Chase said that at his locker last week. T came out almost with a point to prove that he's still one of the best in the game. And Joe Burrow said it yesterday that he feels like T's playing with a chip on his shoulder this year. And you're seeing it, like you said, Bull, no drops, really aggressive, and been the difference for why this offense has been so good when he's been out there.
And I know the Bengals are going to, obviously they're going to screw it up and let him walk. They're not going to sign him, which I guess I could live with, But if they let Jamar Chase go, then they might as well fold up the whole franchise. I mean, that's just beyond. Are they going to sign him eventually, or are they going to F that up too?
That's a great question. I thought it was really interesting that Adam Schefter, the night before the Week 2 game against Kansas City, had a report saying Jamar Chase felt misled in the contract negotiations. And, I thought from the beginning it would be very difficult for both sides to get a deal done given where they were on numbers, given how the Bengals have structured things. I think at some point, we'll see if Joe Burrow looks good the whole year coming off the wrist injury. Maybe you feel more confident in giving a wide receiver that kind of money that he's looking for, because the thing is, if your quarterback isn't really 100%, isn't the same guy coming off a very severe injury, do you feel confident investing that kind of money in a wide receiver? As we just talked about with the Browns, you can have good receivers and guys you think who are capable, but if the quarterback can't get you the ball, then what's the point of having them? And this year, Joe Burrow's done a really good job. I told him point blank, I said, listen, man, you're playing a lot better than I thought you would, given what we saw in camp and week 1. And I think he's really deserves a lot of credit for how well he's played off an injury that no quarterback and thrower has ever had. He's managed that really well. But with Jamar, you got to look at it and go, is it going to be worth the money long term? Do we want to tie up this kind of capital? Yes. And especially, I think the one thing you want to look at is, how much if Joe Burrow is that guy, and we've seen this in Kansas City and Buffalo, that those GMs have decided that we feel like we've got a difference maker at quarterback, we can go find other receivers and still be successful. Josh Allen this year, number 1 in total QBR. Patrick Mahomes has won a couple Super Bowls without Tyreek Hill. And I think that that's a point that you got to note as well, especially when you look at how good these receivers are coming out of the draft each year.
You're not cheering me up there.
Bull,
Ben. You're not cheering me up.
Listen, Ben, tell them if they move off of T and Jamar, they got, what's his name? Elio Sova. What's his name?
Andre I can't remember how to pronounce his name.
Yoshivas.
Yeah.
I like him. He's a nice player. But Jamar Chase and Joe's they're buddies. You can't break them up. That's terrible.
It's going to happen.
Oh, my God.
Ben, what's the one X factor? What's the one matchup that you think decides this game this week?
Yeah, it's got to be Myles Garrett versus Orlando Brown. I think, we'll see where Myles ends up lining up. Does he end up going off against Amari Mims, the rookie? Do they want to put him over there? I think, that'll be a really interesting conversation for Jim Schwartz. But our numbers got Orlando Brown as the best pass blocking tackle in the league this year. He's been really good. Myles, we know what Myles brings to the table. If the Bengals can find a way to just not neutralize, but just make him less disruptive than he's been in previous years, they'll have a really good shot. Otherwise, if you feel like Myles is going to get home and Dalvin Tomlinson's, and that whole defensive line, that whole group is pretty solid. And so if they're going to be able to get home and you feel like you can play press coverage and really make those windows tight, and Cleveland's always known for having physical corners, that could be a problem. And then, like I said, there is a pathway for if the Bengals offense can't get firing against this defense for Cleveland to get things done, even though Deshaun Watson is playing at the level he's playing. So I think if you're the Bengals, you've got to find a way to keep Myles at bay, run the ball well enough to make them honest, and make sure that defensive line does not wreck the game.
Ben, Mike's giving me the we got to go signal, so I'm going to wrap up on this. This is the most important question. What would be a more dominant victory? You against Mike in basketball for him, or you against Mike in boxing for you?
Oh, that's a good question. If I'm understanding correctly, I feel like Mike in basketball, if we put the gloves on, it's no contest. I have the trophy sitting on the desk. So, just wrap them up. Let's get ready to go. Just, I'm ready to serve a two-piece when necessary, Mike.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, it's the six-pack of McNuggets.
So you're saying that would be the domination, would be the boxing. Thanks,
a couple
Ben.
extras. Hey, Ben, when you're in Cleveland, hit me up. We'll get some food before.
Yeah, for sure. Always a pleasure hopping on with y'all.
See you guys.
All right, thanks, Ben. We're going to do two reads real quick.
Yeah, go.
And then get into our ALCS